All right, ready to dive into something fascinating.
Always.
Today, it's the Harvard study of adult development. It's been running, well, for over 84 years,
84 years.
racking the lives of 724 men to uncover the secrets to a good life. They started way back in 1938.
It's amazing. Such a long time.
Really remarkable. And the study's scope is incredible, not just wealth or career success, but like a deep dive into, genuine fulfillment, all backed by scientific evidence.
Almost a century's worth. It really makes you think, what makes a good life?
Definitely. And, it's not just the original participants. They started with two groups, Harvard sophomores, they call them, the college men, and then the inner city men from some of Boston's poorest neighborhoods. But over the decades, they've expanded to include their wives and children, even grandchildren.
Creating this really unique multi-generational data set, right?
Yeah, and that multi-generational aspect is so crucial because it lets researchers really trace how choices and experiences sort of echo through families.
Influencing not just the individual, but also like their descendants.
Exactly. So today, we're going to try to unpack those 84 years of research, sort of distill it down to some actionable takeaways.
I like it a guide to building a fulfilling life based on real evidence.
Exactly. And one of the most powerful findings, the one that really underpins everything else, is the importance of relationships.
Okay, so we've heard that before. Relationships are important, but what makes this finding so special?
Right, exactly.
Well, the Harvard study and like similar studies around the world have shown definitively that good relationships keep us healthier and happier. But I'm not talking about just any relationships.
Oh,
Warm, close relationships, those act as a buffer against stress, especially as we age.
so it's about the quality of our connections, not just how many we have.
Exactly.
Okay, but how did the researchers actually figure this out? Did they just ask people, are you happy?
Much more than that. They collected tons of data personality tests, medical records, detailed interviews, everything from work satisfaction to marriage dynamics.
Sounds intense.
Yeah, but over time, clear patterns emerged, showing a strong link between good relationships and overall well-being.
Makes sense. Any examples from the study, something to illustrate the point?
Absolutely. Take Henry and Rosa Keene. They participated for like over 50 years. They lived pretty ordinary lives, but their relationship, deep love and connection, their daughter Peggy even continued the family's legacy in the study.
That's nice to hear. But what about something more concrete, something that really hammers home how important relationships are for our health?
Well, one striking finding was that satisfaction in relationships at age 50 was a better predictor of health at age 80 than cholesterol levels.
Wow, that's pretty incredible.
It is.
So maybe prioritizing our relationships is more important than obsessing over things like cholesterol.
Might be.
What about money, though? Doesn't everyone say money buys happiness?
Common belief. But the Harvard study found that it's more nuanced. While money can, sure, alleviate stress and it provides opportunities, it doesn't guarantee happiness.
So are you saying money doesn't matter at all?
Not exactly. It's more about, like, what money represents.
Yeah.
Status, achievement, control over your life. You know, the study followed two participants, John and Leo. They illustrate this point pretty well. John was driven by achievement, always striving for success. He became wealthy, but ultimately unhappy. Leo, on the other hand, he prioritized relationships. He found a lot of meaning in his work. He was a teacher, and he led a life full of connection, reported higher levels of happiness.
That's interesting. So it's not the money itself, but what we do with it and how we feel about it.
Yeah, the meaning we attach to it. And, you know, the study found that the more we compare ourselves to others, even if it's favorable, the less happy we tend to be.
Comparison is the thief of joy.
Exactly. And, you know, another thing, the study showed that the college men who on average had higher incomes lived 9.1 years longer than the inner city men, probably due to better health care and just economic advantages.
Sure.
But that longer lifespan, it didn't automatically equal happiness.
So it seems like a, holistic approach to well-being is key, one that goes beyond just money.
It does.
And speaking of a holistic approach, this study brings up this idea of social fitness, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, social fitness highlights the idea that neglecting our relationships is just as bad for us as neglecting our physical health.
So just like we exercise and eat well for our bodies, we need to nurture our social connections for our minds and our emotions.
Right. And the study makes this really fascinating connection to our evolutionary past. So 50,000 years ago, social isolation could be a death sentence.
Oh, wow.
Our brains are wired to crave connection, and when we don't have it, we go into this stress response, like our ancestors did when they were alone out in the wilderness.
I never thought of it like that. It's like our bodies are still catching up to modern life. We can be around people and still feel isolated.
Exactly. And the study highlights this story of Sterling Ainsley, who excelled in his career but really struggled with social connection. He had close relationships, family, friends, but kept them at a distance. Oh,
Later in life, he regretted that. Missed opportunities for deeper connection.
that's sad. But also a powerful reminder that we need to nurture our relationships. We can't just assume everything will be fine.
We can't.
So how do we improve our social fitness? What are some practical steps we can take?
Well, the study suggests that attention is a powerful tool.
Attention, like just paying attention to people.
It's more than that. The study actually highlights the limits of multitasking. There's research showing our brains can really only focus on one thing at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And when we try to juggle multiple tasks, especially social ones, something's going to get lost.
Like when you try to have a meaningful conversation while scrolling on your phone. You're not really present for either thing.
Exactly. And the study draws a parallel to a 1946 photograph by Stanley Kubrick, a subway car full of people, each absorbed in their newspaper.
I can picture it.
It really shows the challenge of being present with others, even in a crowded space. We've all been there. Physically together, but mentally miles apart. And that's even harder in our hyper-connected world, right?
Definitely. The study talks about the pandemic lockdowns, how virtual connections, though helpful, were no replacement for physical presence. We all craved that face-to-face interaction, that shared energy. You just can't get that online.
That's so true. So what can we do to improve our attention in relationships?
A few things. One is creating distraction-free time with loved ones, like no phones at the dinner table.
That's a good one. I'm definitely guilty of that, scrolling during meals.
We all are. It's so ingrained. But putting those devices away, even for short times, can make a huge difference.
Okay, so what else?
You can schedule dedicated time for specific people.
Schedule time.
It might sound a bit formal, but it helps ensure those important relationships don't get lost in the chaos of life.
Like scheduling a doctor's appointment. You don't just assume you'll magically have time. You put it on your calendar. Make it a priority.
Exactly. Another strategy. Arrange your physical environment to encourage interaction.
So like rearranging furniture, creating more inviting spaces.
Yeah, or choosing activities that foster connection, like cooking together or taking a walk.
Instead of, zoning out in front of the TV, we sit and chat while preparing dinner.
Exactly. And finally, there's the practice of mindfulness. Being fully present in the moment, paying attention to our senses, our thoughts, our feelings, without judgment.
I've heard a lot about mindfulness. How does it apply to relationships?
Well, when we're mindful, we're more tuned into the subtle cues in our interactions, both verbal and nonverbal. We listen deeper, understand another person's perspective, and respond with empathy.
So it's not just about clearing our minds, but bringing that awareness to our interactions with others.
Exactly. Being present with the people we care about, savoring those moments, appreciating what they bring to our lives.
That's lovely. A simple shift in mindset, but it seems like it could really have a profound impact.
It really can. And it leads us to another area where relationships intersect with our well-being work. How do we find harmony between our work lives and our personal relationships?
That's a tough one. I feel like I'm always struggling to find that balance.
A lot of people feel that way. And the study points out that the average UK worker, by the time they reach 80, will have spent roughly 13 years at work. That's a huge part of our lives.
It is.
And it highlights how important it is to create a work life that supports, our well-being and allows us to nurture those relationships. The study acknowledges the pressure of modern work culture, the constant demands, how hard it can be to find that balance.
Yeah, that feeling of being overwhelmed by work, like it's always encroaching on our personal lives. I think a lot of people can relate to that.
Absolutely. But the study offers some hope. They share this example of Lauren, a working mother who felt swamped by the demands of, work and family, and she found unexpected support at work through a simple interaction with a coworker.
Really? What happened?
Well, she was struggling with this tedious task, feeling super stressed. A coworker noticed her frustration and offered to help her automate the process.
That's nice of them.
Yeah, and it was a small gesture, but it had a huge impact on Lauren. Not only did it ease her workload, it created this sense of camaraderie and support in the workplace.
That's a great reminder that even in stressful work environments, positive relationships can still make a difference.
Exactly. It's about fostering those connections, even in unexpected places. But the study also acknowledges the challenges of remote work. It can lead to social isolation, blurred boundaries between work and home, increased burdens on parents, especially mothers.
It feels like the line between work and life has become incredibly blurry for so many people.
It has. And as we navigate these changing landscapes of work, it's crucial to be mindful of how our work impacts our relationships, to actively seek out ways to make those connections in our workplaces more fulfilling.
So what does that look like practically?
Well, it could be scheduling those virtual coffee breaks with colleagues, or creating opportunities for informal chats during online meetings, or even advocating for company policies that support work-life balance and encourage social connection.
It's about being proactive, intentional, about creating those opportunities, even if our work is more virtual or decentralized now.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that relationships aren't a distraction from work, they're an integral part of it.
I like that. It's a real shift in perspective.
It is, and it ties back to one of the core messages of the Harvard study. Prioritizing relationships is key to a fulfilling life. They're really the good life.
It makes you think about how we often put relationships on the back burner, you know, while we're chasing other things, that corner office, the fancy car.
And the study suggests those things might not be as fulfilling as we imagine. Remember John, the participant so focused on achievement. When researchers asked him to reflect on his life, he actually admitted to feeling lonely, unsure if he lived the right kind of life.
It's like he achieved everything he thought would make him happy, but it still wasn't enough.
Right. He was missing that human connection.
So if we want to prioritize relationships, where do we even begin? Life gets so busy, jobs, families, commitments. How do we make space for those connections?
Well, the study suggests one of the most effective ways to improve our relationships is through cultivating curiosity.
Curiosity, like asking people more questions.
It's deeper than just asking questions. It's about approaching interactions with genuine interest in the other person, trying to understand their perspective, their thoughts, their feelings.
It's like we get so caught up in our own heads, our own to-do lists, that we forget to really see the people around us.
Exactly. And the study argues that cultivating curiosity can really transform our relationships, big and small.
Okay, so how does this curiosity play out in real life? Give me an example.
Imagine you're at a family gathering. You're sitting next to a relative you don't see very often, maybe someone you even find a little annoying. Instead of tuning them out or just making small talk, what if you approach that interaction with genuine curiosity?
So instead of sticking to surface-level conversation, I might ask, tell me about your life. What are you passionate about? What are you struggling with?
Right. You go a little deeper, you might be surprised at what you discover.
You might find some common ground, or even develop a new appreciation for that person.
And even if you don't totally change your opinion of them, you've still practiced a really valuable skill, the ability to connect with someone outside your usual circle.
It's like a muscle we can strengthen. The more we practice curiosity, the better we get at connecting. But what about when those connections become strained? What happens when conflict arises, especially in those really important relationships?
That's where emotional regulation comes in. The study introduces this model. They call it WISER.
WISER.
It stands for Watch, Interpret, Select, Engage, Reflect. It's a framework for navigating those challenging situations in our relationships. Helps us respond thoughtfully instead of just reacting.
Okay, break that down for me. What's the watch part all about?
It's about paying attention to the whole picture, not just our own feelings, but the context, the other person's behavior, anything else going on that might be influencing the situation.
So taking a step back, observing from a wider lens, rather than getting fixated on our own emotions.
Exactly. Then there's interpret. Trying to understand the meaning behind the behavior. What's motivating the other person? What are they communicating both with their words and their actions?
Like a detective trying to decipher clues. Moving beyond assumptions, trying to see things from their perspective.
Great analogy. And that leads to select, where we consider our options. How do we want to respond? What are the potential consequences?
We're making a conscious choice about how to engage, not just reacting impulsively.
Right. Then engage, where we actually put that chosen response into action. And finally, reflect, where we think about the outcome. What worked? What could we do differently next time?
It's a continuous learning process in our relationships.
It is. And the study emphasizes this takes practice. We won't always get it right. But the more we use this framework, the better we become at navigating those tough conversations and ultimately strengthening our connections.
Okay, so all of this is great in theory, but let's get real romantic partnerships. Probably one of the most challenging relationship dynamics out there. The study doesn't shy away from this, does it?
Nope. It acknowledges the complexity of intimate relationships, the unique challenges and rewards that come with sharing our lives so deeply with another person.
And it emphasizes there's no magic formula for a happy partnership.
Right. What works for one couple might be a disaster for another. The study takes a more nuanced approach, looking for patterns that emerge across successful relationships.
So what are some of those patterns? I'm all ears.
One key finding is the importance of a secure base in our romantic partnerships.
A secure base. Sounds like something out of a psychology textbook.
Well, it is. The study draws on attachment theory, which basically says that our early experiences with caregivers shape how we approach relationships later in life.
So if we had a loving and responsive caregiver in childhood, we're more likely to form secure attachments as adults.
That's the general idea. But a secure base in a romantic partnership goes beyond just our childhood. It means feeling safe and supported, knowing we can turn to our partner for comfort, especially during tough times.
It's like having a safe haven when things get rough.
Exactly. And the study suggests this sense of security is crucial for both partners. It fosters trust, intimacy, emotional stability.
But what if we didn't have that secure base in childhood? Are we doomed to have rocky relationships?
Not at all. The study emphasizes that while our early experiences do influence our attachment styles, they don't determine our fate. With awareness and effort, we can learn to build more secure and fulfilling relationships.
So there's hope.
There is. The study highlights open communication, empathy, and a willingness to be vulnerable as key ingredients for building that secure base.
It's about creating that space where both partners feel safe enough to express their needs, their fears, their desires, knowing they'll be met with understanding and support.
And that's not always easy. It takes courage to be vulnerable, especially if we've been hurt before. But the study suggests the rewards, that deeper connection, the intimacy, a more resilient relationship, they're worth it.
Okay, secure base, open communication, vulnerability. Got
But
it. What else does the study say about creating happy and lasting partnerships?
they emphasize the importance of balancing autonomy and connection.
Meaning,
It's about finding that sweet spot between being our own individuals while still maintaining a strong sense of togetherness.
like that old saying, two halves make a whole. But in a healthy relationship, those halves are still distinct and complete on their own.
Exactly. The study suggests that couples who support each other's individual growth, their passions, while also nurturing that shared connection, they tend to have more satisfying and resilient partnerships.
And that takes trust, right? Trusting that our partner will still be there even as we pursue our own interests.
Absolutely. And that trust is built over time through open communication, shared experiences, and a willingness to navigate disagreements in a healthy way.
So it's not about avoiding conflict, but about learning to disagree respectfully in a way that strengthens the bond.
You got it. The study found that couples who could express both positive and negative emotions during disagreements while still being affectionate and respectful, they were more likely to have stable and happy relationships.
So finding that balance between honesty and kindness, even when things get heated.
That's it. And the study suggests one of the most powerful ways to create that balance is through empathy.
Empathy being able to understand and share our partner's feeling.
Exactly. The study found that couples who were really good at empathy, they were better at navigating conflict, supporting each other through tough times, and just maintaining that connection.
So it's not about being right or winning the argument. It's about really understanding where your partner is coming from and responding in a way that validates their experience.
Right. It requires us to step outside our own perspective. Imagine what it's like to be in their shoes.
It's about recognizing that even if we don't agree with our partner, their feelings are still valid. They deserve to be heard.
And that kind of empathetic listening can be really powerful. It can diffuse tension, build trust, create intimacy.
Okay, this makes sense. But are there any specific things we can do? Any concrete actions to cultivate empathy in our relationships?
The study suggests a few simple but powerful practices. One is to just ask our partner how they're feeling, and then really listen to their answer. No interrupting, no giving advice, unless they ask for it.
So just being present with them, letting them express themselves freely.
Exactly. Another practice is reflecting back what we hear them saying, making sure we understand.
So it's not just passive listening, it's active engagement, making sure we're on the same page.
Right. And the study also highlights the importance of nonverbal communication.
You mean body language?
Things like eye contact, touch, tone of voice. They can communicate empathy even more powerfully than words sometimes.
It's like saying, I'm here, I'm listening, I care, without actually saying it.
Exactly, and those small gestures can be really powerful.
So we've talked about secure base, open communication, vulnerability, balancing autonomy and connection, managing conflict constructively, and cultivating empathy. Anything else?
One more key ingredient: affection.
Ah, the lovey-dovey stuff.
Well, it's more than just romantic gestures. The study defines affection as any behavior that communicates care, closeness, positive regard.
So it could be a hug, a compliment, a shared joke.
Exactly, and they found that expressing affection regularly, both verbally and non-verbally, was strongly linked to relationship satisfaction and stability.
It's like those small acts of affection are the glue that holds it all together, reminding us of the connection, even when things are tough.
And they can have a big impact. Even during disagreements, couples who showed affection were more likely to resolve things constructively.
So even when you're arguing, a little affection can go a long way.
It reminds us that even when we're frustrated or angry, we still care.
We've learned a lot about romantic relationships, but the study doesn't stop there, right? It also looks at family dynamics.
It does. It recognizes that families are complex systems, shaped by shared history, genetics, the ever-changing dynamics of each member.
And our families of origin, the ones we're born into, they have a big impact on us, don't they?
Huge. The study highlights the story of Neil McCarthy, an inner-city participant who grew up in a loving but chaotic home. His mom struggled with alcoholism.
And even though he worked hard to create a stable and loving family of his own, he still struggled with his past.
His story shows how those patterns we learn in our families, how we communicate, how we handle conflict, how we show affection, they can shape our relationships throughout life.
It's like those early experiences get embedded in us. They influence our expectations and behavior, even if we're not aware of it.
Right, and the study suggests recognizing these patterns is the first step towards breaking free from negative cycles, towards creating healthier relationships.
So it's about understanding where we come from, acknowledging how our families have shaped us, the good and the bad, and then making conscious choices about how we want to relate to our loved ones.
Exactly. And the study emphasizes this is an ongoing process. Family dynamics are always evolving. As we grow and change, our relationships need to adapt too.
It's like a dance, isn't it? We're constantly adjusting to each other's steps, finding new rhythms as we move through life together.
I like that. And the study suggests one of the most important skills for navigating this dance is forgiveness.
Forgiveness. That's easier said than done, especially with family.
It can be really hard. But the study emphasizes forgiveness isn't about condoning bad behavior or forgetting the past. It's about letting go of the resentment and anger we hold on to, freeing ourselves from those negative emotions.
It's about acknowledging that our family members, just like us, are imperfect. They make mistakes.
And holding on to grudges hurts us more than it hurts them.
So forgiveness is as much a gift to ourselves as it is to the other person. But how do we actually do it? How do we forgive? Especially when it's really painful.
It's a process, and it's different for everyone. But the study suggests one approach is to start by acknowledging the hurt. Allow ourselves to feel those emotions fully. We don't want to suppress them.
That sounds incredibly difficult.
It can be. It takes courage and self-compassion, but by acknowledging the hurt, we can start to move through it. And as we do, our perspective might shift. We might start to see the situation with more understanding and compassion.
So seeing the situation and the person we're trying to forgive with fresh eyes,
Yeah.
recognizing that they might have been acting out of their own pain.
Exactly. And as we cultivate understanding and compassion, forgiveness might become more natural.
It's not about condoning their actions, but about choosing to let go of the anger and resentment that's holding us back.
Right. And the study suggests that practicing forgiveness, even in small ways, can have a ripple effect, improving communication, reducing conflict, creating a more harmonious family dynamic.
It's like we're taking a deep breath and letting go of a heavy weight, freeing ourselves to move forward.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
I'm starting to see how all of these pieces fit together. Curiosity, emotional regulation, secure base, empathy, forgiveness. They're all essential for building healthy and fulfilling relationships.
And the study reminds us that these relationships aren't just nice to have. They're vital for our well-being. They give us a sense of belonging, purpose, support. They help us through the tough times.
It's like we're all interconnected, and those connections give our lives meaning.
And they take work. We have to nurture them, cultivate them, make them a priority.
It's not about waiting for them to magically appear. It's about engaging with the people around us, showing up with curiosity, empathy, vulnerability.
And the study suggests this is a lifelong journey, Our relationships are always evolving, and it's up to us to keep showing up, keep learning, and keep investing in those connections that matter most. It's like we're gardeners, tending to something precious, weeding out the negativity, watering the seeds of kindness, making space for those connections to grow.
I love that analogy. And speaking of connections, we haven't talked much about friendships. Do they play a big role in a fulfilling life, according to the study?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Friendships are vital, the study found that much. It's not about, having a ton of friends or being popular. It's about those genuine connections where you feel seen, understood.
We've all heard that saying friends of the family you choose, but the study seems to take it a step further.
It does. It argues that friendships aren't a luxury, they're essential for our happiness, our health. The study found that people with strong friendships, they tend to be happier, healthier, they even live longer.
Like a built-in support system, people who are there for you no matter what.
Exactly. And it's an investment, one that pays off in so many ways. Think about it. When you're going through a tough time, who do you turn to? It's probably a close friend.
It's true. My friends, they're my rocks. They make me laugh. They listen. No judgment. They always know how to cheer me up.
And the study found that those friendships can change over time. The ones that were so central in our 20s, they might fade as we enter new phases of life. But then they can reemerge as things change again.
Like, they're always there, waiting in the wings, ready to come back on stage when we need them.
That's a good way to put it.
It's reassuring, honestly.
Yeah.
Sometimes I worry about losing touch with friends as we get older. Our lives go in different directions.
It's natural for friendships to shift, ebb and flow. But the important thing is to nurture them, even if it's just a quick text or a phone call every so often.
Keep those bonds strong.
Right.
What else did this study find out about friendships? Anything surprising?
It challenged some of those old ideas about, gender and friendship.
Oh, like the whole men and women can't be just friends thing.
Well, it's more about the assumption that men and women approach friendships in totally different ways. Like, women are more emotional, men are more about doing activities together.
Yeah, that stereotype. Guys just want to watch sports and avoid talking about feelings.
Exactly. But the study found that while there might be some subtle differences, men and women actually value similar things in their friendships. Trust, honesty, shared interests, emotional support, the important stuff.
So it's not really about gender, but about finding people you connect with on a deeper level.
Exactly. It speaks to the power of connection. It goes beyond those labels we sometimes put on things.
The study also mentioned community involvement, right? Being part of something bigger.
They did. They found that people who are active in their communities, they tend to be happier. This could be volunteering, joining a club, attending religious services, even just being a good neighbor.
Makes sense. When you're connected to something larger than yourself, contributing to something meaningful, it gives you a sense of purpose.
And belonging. And it opens up opportunities to meet new people, expand your social circle.
It's like expanding your social fitness routine beyond your usual group of friends and family.
I like that. It reminds us that we're all part of this big web of humanity, and those connections, no matter how small, can have a ripple effect.
We've covered a lot today, from the power of relationships to curiosity, emotional regulation, forgiveness, even social fitness. It's like a guidebook for living a more connected and fulfilling life.
And it's all rooted in science. Decades of research. The Harvard study has given us so much insight into what really matters. And it's up to us to take that knowledge and put it into action.
So what's the big takeaway for our listeners? What's the one thing they should remember from all of this?
Prioritize your relationships. Nurture your connections, family, friends, romantic partners, even those casual acquaintances who make you smile. Invest in those relationships like you would invest in your health, your career, your finances. Because in the end, it's those connections that truly matter.
No road is long with good company.
Wise words. And as we wrap up this deep dive, we want to leave you with a thought. Imagine you're saying goodbye to someone you care about. You might not see them again. What would you say to them? What would you thank them for? Now, go and tell them. Don't wait. Pick up the phone. Write a letter. Do it today. Life's too short to take those connections for granted.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the Harvard study. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.